servant. Amen. Some of y'all, I'm going to get a holy grunt out of you before this week's up. Not only do we need to be bold in our prayers, in our practices, we need to be bold when we present the gospel. Paul said, I believe it's Romans 1:16, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. For it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth. Can I tell you, it's what our people need.
That's right.
It's what our nation needs.
Amen.
It's what our schoolhouse needs, our jailhouse needs. It's what your family needs. It's what your neighbor needs. It's the one that lives next to you. You can't hardly stand. It's what they need too.
Amen.
I'm going to tell this and then I'll move on to my last point, I promise. There was a pastor, this is a true story. A pastor had told his church about the need of being a witness, of taking the gospel to their neighborhood and to their community, to their families, of letting them know that Jesus Christ died, was buried, and rose again, and that's the only hope that we have. That's the gospel. And after he presented that to the church, after the service, there was a young boy that approached him. Now this boy was very disabled. He was born with several disabilities. They said he couldn't read. It was hard for him to retain things. He was born with all kinds of nerve damage, and so he walked with a limp. When he was born, they had problems in the actual birth, and his face got scarred up, and on top of that, if that wasn't enough, he spoke with a severe stutter. This boy was severely disabled. He came to his pastor and he said, Pastor, he said, what can I do? I'm damaged goods. His pastor said, son, you can hand out gospel tracts. And that's just what that boy done. That boy went to the market, he went to the mall, he went to the store, he went everywhere he could go. He went to Walmart, and this boy took him a bunch of tracts. And what he would do is walk up to somebody and say, pardon me, my pastor gave me this, and I can't read. Can you read it to me? Hey, he wasn't lying. Hey, his pastor did give it to him, and he couldn't read it. And so he'd hand him the tract, and they'd look at it. And the first thing it would say is, admit you're a sinner. And that boy would say, oh my, are you a sinner? And you know what? The pastor said it never failed. He said he brought 30 down the aisle every month. He was the best soul winner our church had. And can I tell you, don't tell me that you can't do something. And you may not be able to do everything, but you can do something. And I'll tell you, we need to be bold when we pray. We need to be bold in our practices. And we need to be bold when we present the gospel to our children, our grandchildren, our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers, everybody we know. We need to tell them that Jesus saves. Jesus saves. It's the only hope they have. And one day after a while, I don't want to look over their dead corpse and say, I wish I would have. I should have. If only I did. I want to be able to say, Lord, I did everything I could do to tell about Jesus so that they can be saved. And I guarantee you one thing. If they do get saved, you'll be the best friend that they've ever had. And they'll be your best friend too. Amen. We need to be bold. Someone said, well, preacher, I can't do what you do. You don't have to. Just be you.
That's right.
But be willing to let God use you.
Amen.
To present the gospel to somebody. Because it's the only hope they got. Aren't you glad somebody told you about Jesus one day?
Amen.
Maybe it was a daddy or a mommy. Maybe it was a mama or a papa or the old preacher. Maybe it was the Sunday school teacher or some neighbor that shined a light to you. But somebody took the time to tell you about Jesus. These friends had a virtue of a boldness. They said, we've got to get our friend to Jesus. Brother, the crowd had covered up the door. They couldn't get in. But they said, you know what? We're climbing up on the roof. We're going to tear up the tile, get him down. He's the only hope we got. We got to get him to Jesus. They had a boldness about them to get their friend to Jesus. One more and I'm done. We need to have the vision of a burden. We need to have the virtue of a boldness. And lastly, if we'll do that, friend, This is where it gets gooder. Woo! We can have the victory of the blessing. Hey, we talk about revival. We talk about how God used to send revival. I believe God still can. We talk about we want revival. But I'm talking about if we'll have a vision of a burden, and if we'll have the virtue of a boldness, I believe we'll see the victory of the blessing. Can I share some things with you? 3 things that I'm done. Number 1, their friend got forgiven. Woo! Amen goes right there. Their friend got forgiven. How do you know, preacher? Because the book said. The Bible said as they were lowering him down to where Jesus was, the Bible said Jesus, seeing their faith, said unto him that was sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. Woo! Thank God, brother, the victory of the blessing. Their friend got forgiven. How many remember the day when you got your sins forgiven? Some of y'all don't remember that. Some of y'all don't remember the day you got your sins forgiven. Don't be afraid to raise your hand. How many? How many? How many remember the day you got your sins forgiven? Thank God I remember the day. Hey, brother, when he forgave me my sin. Hey, I'm telling you, I guarantee you those 4 friends were glad that their friend got his sins forgiven. You should have seen Brian Howard at Sayersville Free Will Baptist Church Sunday morning when his daughter walked the aisle and got her sins forgiven. I've never seen nothing like it. At first he looked like a ragdoll slumped back in the sound booth, and when he finally got enough composure, he come down the aisle crying, snotting short. Listen, he was shouting everything else. You know why? Because his daughter got her sins forgiven. You let your grandbaby come. You let your daughter come. You let your son come. I guarantee you won't sit there like this. I guarantee you will get up and say, glory, glory, glory. Amen. Thank God they got their sins forgiven. I'll tell you, he got his sins forgiven. I'll tell you, he can still save, folks. Now, I know we've all got family that we said, ain't never going to happen. I'll tell you, God can do it. He's still in there. You know why I know he can do it? Because Paul wrote to Timothy and said he would have all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. Peter said he's not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Jesus said, I didn't come to call the righteous, I came to call a sinner to repentance. Their friend got his sins forgiven. Amen. Thank you, Lord. But listen, not only did he get forgiven, he got fixed. Oh. Number 2, he got fixed. How do you know? Because after Jesus said, thy sins be forgiven thee, just like today, you got them old scribes. Ooh, this man blasphemeth. Who does he think he is? Nobody can forgive sins but God alone. What's this man doing? Jesus perceived their thoughts and said, hey, whether it's easier to say, thy sins be forgiven thee, or rise, take up thy bed and walk, but that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins. He said unto him that was sick of the palsy, rise, take up your bed and walk. You know what he did? He took up his bed and began to walk out like he owned the place. That's how I'm telling you, not only did he get forgiven, but he got fixed. He got fixed. Thank God he's in the business of fixing what's broken tonight. Hey, got a question for you. The place was so full they couldn't get in. Reckon how he got out. I don't know. But I see them, brother, they're just peeling back, watching him walk by. I like to see their faces, wouldn't you? Hey, you know what? There's some things in your life saying to God, the devil has told you it's too broken and ain't never going to get fixed. The devil's trying to tell some of you, that person, that loved one ain't never going to get saved. That one that used to be in church, they ain't never coming back. The devil's trying to tell some of you this church ain't never going to prosper. He's trying to tell you that sickness ain't never going to get healed. That problem ain't never going to get solved. That need ain't never going to get met. That blessing ain't going to come. That prayer's never going to be answered. You know what? One of these days when the devil gets bound with that great chain and he's standing on the edge of the lake of fire, I'd like to be the one to push him in, wouldn't you? He's a liar! He's a liar! And brother, I'm telling you, I don't know what you got broken. Say to God, I don't know what you got broken. I don't know what you're hanging on to. You've heard enough gospel. The whole world should be saved. I'll tell you, friend, you need the Lord more than you need the breath in your lungs. You need the Lord more than the bread on your table. And you need the Lord more than you need the bright things of this world. You need Jesus. Their friend got forgiven. He got fixed. I got one more point and I'm done. Brother Larry, how many will give me 5 more minutes? How many give me 5? 5, 10, 15, 20, 20. Not only did their friend get forgiven, not only did he get fixed, but I'm going to end on this. The fires of revival begin to burn. You know what we're doing here this week? We want revival.
Amen.
We need revival.
Need revival.
And you know what? The only reason we ain't got revival is because some folks are willing to live without it. We've gotten content to live without it. We talk about what God used to do like He can't do it no more. We talk about all the songs He used to say like He can't save no more. Like God somehow has lost His power and authority. Like God's gone to sleep or gone on a trip or He ain't no longer on the throne. But I'm talking about, friend, listen, their friend got forgiven, he got fixed, and the fires of revival begin to burn. I'm going to end with this. Notice what the book said in verse 12. And immediately he arose, took up the bed, and went forth before them all, insomuch they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, we never saw it on this fashion. But I like how Luke recorded it even better. In Luke chapter 5, verse 26, here's what Luke said about it. And they were all amazed, and they glorified God, and were filled with fear, saying, we have seen strange things today. That word strange is the word paradoxos in the Greek. That's where we get the word paradox. Paradoxos, you know what that word means? That word paradoxos means seeming contrary to expectation. Woo! Sounds like my God.
Amen.
Seeming contrary to expectation, it means extraordinary. Or you could say it like this, extraordinary. Extraordinary. Seeming contrary to expectation. Paradoxos, we have seen strange things. Church, as I get ready to close, how many of you would like to see some strange things?
Amen. Amen.
How many of you would like to see God move
Amen.
in such a way that we stand in awe and say we have never seen it on this fashion? We have seen strange things. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to have the kind of service when we leave shaking our head, saying, can you believe what God did tonight? And I'd love for you to come back tomorrow night saying, can you believe what God done last night? I'm talking about, friend, I don't know what it is that you need in your life, but listen, church, we need to get a burden. We need to have the vision of a burden.
Bless you, Lord.
Church friend, I hope, listen, in just a moment we're going to give an altar call. And I want you to get at least one lost soul on your heart and mind. It might be a son, a daughter, a grandchild, a neighbor, a friend, a co-worker, I don't know, a niece, a nephew, a parent, I don't know, a spouse. But I want you to get one lost individual on your heart and mind. They are one heartbeat away from an eternity in hell. Amen. I'm telling you, we need to get a burden for our lost people. I had a friend the other day. We had sacrament and foot washing Friday night. I was in that service with my in-laws. There was a man named Howard Glover that got up to testify, and he remembered when he was lost, and his brother, who's a preacher, went to his dad at the time and said, Dad, what can we do about Howard? You know what he said? He said that we need to pray old-time conviction on him. We need to pray old-time conviction. We need to get a burden.
We do.
I know right now some of y'all are worried about the time, but it's a whole lot later than what you think. Friend, the time is winding down. We need to get the vision of a burden. We need to have the virtue of a boldness. We need to be bold when it comes to praying. You can't even get folks to come to an altar. Listen, they say the average Christian prays 2 minutes a day and the average preacher 5 minutes a day. I said it's no wonder why we ain't seeing people saved. It's no wonder why conviction has gone out of the church and the shout's gone and there ain't no more power in the church. You know why? Folks ain't praying with the boldness no more.
Right. Amen.
Bold in our practices. Oh, listen, we get so backwards and they back us up in a corner. Don't you dare mention Jesus' name. I'll mention his name because he's the only hope we got. And it need to have a virtue. Listen, when we present the gospel, telling our people that they need Jesus. I want you to get one lost person on your heart and mind. Because just like this man in Mark chapter 2, the Lord can forgive them of their sins. But not only can he forgive, listen to this, church, he can fix. And so not only do I want you to get a lost soul on your heart and mind, I want you to think of something else. I want you to get somebody else on your heart and mind. They might be here tonight. They might be a part of your church family. They might be a part of your family. It might be you, friend. I want you to get somebody on your heart that needs something fixed. Get them on your heart and mind. You've got brothers and sisters going through stuff. You've got family members going through stuff. There's people you worship with every week. They're going through stuff. They're carrying burdens. They're fighting battles. They're sailing through storms. Hey, listen, they're fighting spiritual battles. They need somebody to pray for them. They need somebody to come alongside them. The Bible said, pray ye one for another and bear ye one another's burdens. Listen, God, the same God that fixed this man, can fix our brothers and our sisters. He can fix our problems. He can take care of our needs. He can supply whatever we need. And listen, if you don't pray for nothing else, we need to pray that the fires of revival burn once again. We need revival, folks. We need to see strange things. As the brother comes to the piano, and he's going to play softly for just a moment. Before we stand, I'm going to ask every head to be reverently bowed. I'm going to ask him to come and play on the piano right now. Ask him to play right now. Before we move, and he's playing softly, every head reverently bowed across this building. I know it's late. I didn't mean to keep you this late, but God's doing business with somebody. Listen, let me ask you this. Are you here today, Christian friend, and you've got somebody that you love that's lost and undone? Tonight, how many of you will raise your hand and say, preacher, I want to have a burden for my people that's lost? How many? How many? How many will raise your hand and say, preacher, I want to get a burden for my lost people that are lost and undone? Thank you. Thank you. Let me ask you this. How many of you will raise your hand and say, preacher, not only do I know somebody that needs forgiven, but there's somebody that I love, a friend, a family member, a brother or sister in Christ. They've got something in their life that they need me to pray about. They've got something that needs fixed. How many? Do you know somebody like that? Do you know somebody that's sick? You know somebody that's going through a trial? You know somebody that's facing a storm or fighting a battle or carrying a burden? Hands going up all over. Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this. How many, church friend, how many of you want to see God send revival to Grace Free Will Baptist Church? Will you raise your hand? Is that you tonight? You want to see God do that? I do too. Let me ask you this tonight. Is there somebody here? Church, I appreciate you raising your hand. Lost friend, let me talk to you just for a second. Are you here tonight lost without God? You need to be saved. You need to be saved. I will not come back to you. I will not embarrass you, but I would like to pray for you. How many of you, lost friend, will raise your hand? Say, preacher, I'm lost without God. If I died right now, I know I'd die without God and I'd go to hell. Preacher, I need you to pray for me. How many? How many? Are you concerned about your soul? Are you concerned about your eternity, that you would at least slip up your hand and say, preacher, I want you to pray for me? Anybody? Anybody? Let me ask you this. Is there somebody here that maybe at one time you were saved, but tonight you're away from God, not where you need to be? You're out of the will of God. You're cold and distant from God. Is that you tonight? Is that you? How many would raise your hand and say, preacher, I know I'm not where I need to be? Anybody want to admit that? All right, look up here, friend. There's a lot of church folk that raised their hand and said, I've got somebody that's lost. I need to pray for them. You raised your hand and said, you know what? There's somebody that I know. They need God to do something in their life. They need God to fix something for them. I want to ask you to do something as they get ready to sing this song. Listen, folks, we need to be bold when we pray. I want to ask you, just like these four men did, will you come? Will you come and bring that individual by the way of prayer to the Lord tonight as we stand across this building? Will you come and will you pray and ask God?